Hello all, I'm Sai and in today's video I'm going to talk about some of my anticipated book releases for 2024. It's not like I'm excited for only these few books in 2024, and I'm making this list because we have the tentative publication dates for all of these books already out in the internet and also added in Goodreads. It's not like I've read so many books by the authors whose books that I'm going to talk about in this video, but I have liked what I've read from them so far, so I'm definitely interested in picking up all these books in 2024 itself. Let's just wait and see. I'm usually very bad in catching up with new releases because they are super expensive here for us in India, and I always prefer to buy and read them as physical copies than any other formats. So without any further ado, let's get into the books right away. The first book is an adult contemporary romance, and while saying this itself, I'm able to feel myself laugh from inside because I used to be a reader who's not that much into romance books at all, but in the past 2 years or so, I have started liking the romance genre. It's not like I read a ton of romance books every year. I read like 4 or 5 of the 100 or 150 that I read throughout the year, and I think that's quite a decent number for a person like me. And the book that I'm super interested to read in the romance genre in 2024 is Funny Story by Emily Henry. I have not read the latest book by the author itself until now, and that is Happy Place. I've read all the other 3 published books by Emily Henry so far, and I've liked each and every one of them. I also believe that I'll be buying and reading Happy Place before I get into Funny Story, and the plot of this one is quite long and convoluted, so I'm not going to try and attempt to explain it to you guys because I myself could not understand it properly from the synopsis or description of the book. But I definitely trust Emily Henry because she has a really digestive and smooth writing style which just makes the story a lot easier to consume. At the same time, it's also written in such a way that the romance is not the only thing that the book focuses on. She adds a lot of layers to her characters as well as the people who are surrounding characters. It is not just like two hot finding people meeting each other and hitting it off. They have their own baggage, they have a lot of emotional stuff that they are working through in their present as well as from the past, and despite all those things, they find themselves falling for the other person. I'm sure that this will be super fun to read, and it is coming out on April 23rd. The next one is a standalone fantasy book by one of my all-time favorite authors. You know who it is if I say my favorite author itself, and it is The Familiar by Leigh Bardugo. I've read almost all of Leigh Bardugo's books. I've just not started with the Night House series. Since both the books Night House and Hellbent are out right now, I want to catch up with the series and read it because people whom I trust on booktube have said only really good things about Night House. It's not like it's perfect, but everyone seems to say that Leigh Bardugo has done a really good job of writing an adult fantasy book. It is also inside the dark academia genre if I'm not wrong, so I want to catch up with Ninth House first and then read this one, just The Familiar. I'm not sure whether I'll be able to purchase it as soon as it gets released because new releases in at least in YA books are a bit affordable when it comes to the price here, and I'm sure that they'll be releasing it in hardcover only first, so it'll be even more expensive. If it is somewhere around 1000 or 1200 rupees, I'm sure I will purchase it as soon as it gets released. Otherwise, it might take some time, I don't know. But I'm sure I'm going to read this physically only and not as an audiobook or an ebook because I want to feel this book in my hands. Just look at that cover also, it just looks super gorgeous. And the hand holding the wand or cane something, it looks royal, old as well as super powerful just from that small image itself. And I know Leigh Bardugo's writing is something which is always out of the world. So this is easily going into my TBR, and I just cross my fingers and hope that I'll be able to get it as soon as it gets released. The next one is a fantasy book, fantasy romance, that is written by a adult contemporary romance author. I think she has published like 3 or 4 books until now, and each and every one have been bestsellers. I read her first book alone, which is The Love Hypothesis, and this latest release by her is The Bride, and the author is Ali Hazelwood. This book is coming out on the 8th of February, and it is basically a love story between a vampire and a werewolf. From what I've read in The Love Hypothesis, I'm sure that this author has that capability to address a lot of things inside a romantic story, but it is not like that is the main part of the story in any way. It's just a fun, steamy time inside the book, and it's also done in a way that it's not cringy at all. While reading The Love Hypothesis itself, I thought that it was over the top at points, but it fit in well with the romance genre if you ask me. And since this is also a romantic fantasy, that is romantasy, I'm sure the author will have done a good job because I have liked the dynamic between the 2 main characters in that one, even though one of the characters was not at all developed in any way. And more than anything, it is the romance between a she-vampire and a he-werewolf, 2 species of supernatural creatures who don't get along with each other at all. So I think it might be kind of enemies to lovers, I don't know. It's kind of a catchphrase for everyone to just jump on. I'm not that much into enemies to lovers, but I am interested in seeing how a love story can be written between a werewolf and a vampire. Let's just wait and see when I get to this one. The next one is a super popular book by a super popular author, again adult fantasy, and it is House of Flame and Shadow by Sarah J. Maas, which is the 3rd book inside the Crescent City series. I have not read the first 2 books, but I have them as hardcover copies with me. I was actually about to pre-order this one, but unfortunately what happened, when I was about to order the book, the price of the hardcover just shot up like 10 times than how it was before. So I just went forward and put it on hold. However, I've yet not read the first 2 books also, so I can wait and buy it when it comes down in price. Now this is basically an urban fantasy series which has a mystery plot going on, and since it's strategy math, I also think that it'll have a really good romance. Obviously we have a female main character who's a badass, and I also like the way in which she writes her characters. I've read like one of the Throne of Glass books, I've read Catwoman by her, and I've read the first 2 Avatar books. So based on all those things, I know that her main characters will be a bit irritating. At the same time, they will have stuff in them too. And one more important thing, of all the books that I'm talking about today, just look at this cover. I don't think any other book cover is prettier than this one. I know that it's all gold and violent, and I totally love the thing that they've done with it in this cover. Again, I'm just going to cross my fingers and hope that I'll be able to buy it at a proper price. Next, we have another adult fantasy book, and it is by an author whose books that I've not read so far, but one of her series is very high on my priority for the TBR in the first quarter of this year. And the book is The Warm Hands of Ghosts by Catherine Ardell, which is coming out on February 13th. I basically don't know much about this book, but of all the good things that I've heard about this author's Winter Night trilogy, I'm super excited for this one. Of course, it has some kind of ghost lore going on, and if I'm not wrong, it is also based on some kinds of Russian things. So I'll probably not read this until it is like winter or so, which is towards the end of the year, but I want to give this one also a try. I don't mind even if it's an audiobook or if I read it on my Kindle, but I want to give this one a try because it did sound interesting for me. It's just that the timing for the release of the book is not lying with the timing in which I want to read it. So I'll probably read this later into the year, but I sure am following this author. Next, we have an adult fantasy sequel to an adult fantasy standalone book which was supposed to be a standalone 2 to 3 years back. I think it's been nearly 4 years for the sequel kind of book to come out, and it is Somewhere Beyond the Sea by T.J. Klune, which is coming out on September 10th. So we have quite a while to worry about this book. I even listened to the first book, which is The House on the Cerulean Sea, as an audiobook only. It was very cozy, it was very nice to read. There was nothing over the top about that book at all. It was just too much coziness if you ask me. And I think this will be kind of darker than stone based on the cover of this book, because this does not suggest a cozy story in any way. I have another book by T.J. Klune also on my physical TBR already, and it is In the Lives of Puppets. I think it even won the Best Sci-Fi Book Award for the Goodreads Awards in 2023. I'm sure it's just a popularity thing. Still, I want to go forward and give that a try because some of my friends here on BookTube have said that that book is good. It's quite huge, so I think it will take a little bit of time for me to read, but that's also on my TBR as I've said before. And since it's T.J. Klune, I want to give this a book a try because I think there will be something good about this, and since it's also a direct sequel to The House in the Cerulean Sea, and as far as I can see from the things that are going on the cover, it'll be darker than that book. We'll have to wait and see how this is going to be. I want to apologize now because I'm talking about a lot of adult fantasy sequels already, and this is also another adult fantasy sequel, and it is also the sequel for one of my most favorite books from 2023. The book was released in 2021, but I read it in 2023 only. It's good because just 1 year after I finished reading the book, the second book is coming out, and it is Empire of the Damned by J. Christoph, which is coming out on Feb 29th. So this book will not have an anniversary for another 4 years, technically speaking. And I loved Empire of the Vampire. Okay, it was super dark. It is something which I felt very close to Game of Thrones in the scope and the darkness that it delivered. It is easily one of the darkest fantasy books that I've read so far. Yet, it is not something which is difficult to read at all. It is slow at times, but if you want to just put your teeth in and just sink into a fantasy world, it is definitely one book you need to try. It is adult fantasy, so it has all kinds of trigger warnings put in there. At the same time, it is also so fun to read. I like the writing of J. Christoph very much because he does cussing like no one else ever has, and I don't think anyone else can do it as good as he does too, because each and every time you read something that is a cussing that is written by J. Christoph, you will cringe and laugh at the same time because it will be that good. Again, just see the cover of this book. It itself screams the darkness that it's going to represent. It's like a dark vampire series, and I'm like 100% sure this is going to be great. I'm going to love it, and it will probably end up being one of my favorite books from 2024. Let's just wait and see what's going to happen. Next, we have a standalone Indian-based fantasy book, and it is Goddess of the River by Vaishnavi Patil, who's the author of Kaikeyi, which is one book which came out in 2021 or 2022, and it went so viral. I think the book has even been banned in some countries because of some reasons, and I also think that is one of the reasons why it is very expensive here in India for us to buy. I want to read that book physically only, that's why I have not read it yet. That talks about the story of Kaikeyi, or the story of Ramayana from the point of view of Kaikeyi, and in this one we are going to see the story of Ganga. that is the river Ganga. We all know how the river Ganga is sacred for us Indians and how important it is for the country as a whole. I've heard nothing but great things about Kaikeyi, and I'm expecting the same kind of, applause for this one also, even if I don't end up reading the book anytime soon, because I think stories like this one need to reach a global audience, and if an author is able to do that, I think they need to be encouraged and they need to be talked about more so that more people can go forward and pick up those books. So this is easily on my TBR. The next one is the last book inside an adult fantasy series again, but I've not started reading the series. I'll definitely finish reading it very soon in 2024, and I even thought of waiting for a few months so that this book also gets released and I can binge through the series, but it's going to be released on November 1st only. That was a very rough date because we don't even have a cover for this one, which is The Lotus Empire by Tasha Suri, which is the last and final book inside the Burning Kingdom series. The first two books are The Jasmine Throne and The Oleander Sword. I have both the books on my physical DVR and I'll be reading them pretty soon. I have this vision in my mind that this book is going to have a really nice magenta or pink cover since it has the title The Lotus Empire, and I also think both the main characters of the series are going to be there on the cover. It's this Indian based high fantasy series which has two main female characters who have a sapphic storyline going on, so I think it checks off a lot of marks which I want to explore in this series, and I just hope that the third book gets released in 2024 itself and I also get to finish reading it. So even though the cover is not out, it's easily one of my anticipated releases for the year. The next one is the last book inside a YA fantasy series, and I've read only the first book in the series and I've been waiting for the series to get published completely in order to binge through the rest of it also. The second book got released in 2020 or 2021 and the third book is coming out now only, that is in 2024, which is Children of Anguish and Anarchy by Tomi Adeyemi, which is the third book inside the Legacy of Orisha series. I've read the first book Children of Blood and Bone and I've not read the second book Children of Virtue and Vengeance yet. I'm going to reread the first book and binge through the series once the third book comes out so that I can finish the series as a whole. The main thing that I liked about this series on the first book in specific is that it had a very fresh setup. The writing of the author was super beautiful. It's not like the characters were great or anything, but the action inside the first book was just super well done. It was very fast paced and it's a huge chunk, okay? I think it's over 500 pages long and you'll not be able to put the book down because it is that action packed. I still have it somewhere on my shelf, so I'll definitely be rereading it before I get to the second and third books inside the series. And this final book is getting released on June 25th. And the last book inside this video is something which just surprised me totally because I thought the last book of the series came out last year itself, and while reading that book, which was supposed to be the last book last year, I got super emotional and I just bid the series farewell because it ended on a really nice note. And the book that I'm talking about is a magical realism book, which is Before We Forget Kindness by Toshikazu Kawaguchi, which is the fifth book inside the Before the Coffee Gets Cold series. I did not even expect that the series would be having another installment coming out, and it's getting published on March 13th itself. I listened to the first 4 books as audiobooks, and I'm pretty sure that once this gets released, I'll listen to this one also straight away. It has that kind of getting back home and just settling into your soil kind of vibe. I don't know why, while reading Japanese stories itself, I just feel this kind of fondness and closeness to them for some reason. It doesn't even have a cover out yet. I'm not sure whether the Japanese version of it or the English translated version is getting published on March 13th, but when I checked on Goodreads, it just said the English title of the book and March 13th. So I hope it will get released in the first quarter itself. Let's just wait and see. But like 100% sure, if it gets released, I'll read it straight away. So yes guys, those are some of my anticipated book releases for the year 2024. And I have not mentioned any of Cassandra Clare's books in this video because we have not gotten release dates for any of the books by Cassandra Clare in 2024, and it's quite disheartening for me. She had 2 releases in 2023 and I hated Chain of Thorns, and I was not able to finish reading Sword Catcher in 2023. I'll be reading it soon in 2024, but I want to get more good Shadowhunter books out of her. I'm pretty sure that the Wicked Power series is going to be good. We have the titles of all the 3 books, but we just don't have the publication dates yet. I just pray that they get released soon and I get to read at least one Wicked Powers book in 2024 and also the last book inside the Endless Curse series because I want more Magnus in life. So yeah, if you are excited for any of the book releases that I've talked about in this video, please do let me know down in the comments. And if you have any other books that you're excited to read in 2024 and want me to read, comment them also down below so that I can go forward and check them out. And if you did enjoy watching today's video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and also share it to your friends. And if you want to get more content from me, do subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching and have a great rest of your day.